Hey, I'm James McBride. Some of you I've met before, some of you I haven't. Take the opportunity to watch the information about who I am and what my background is. That way you'll know that I'm really here for you, even though this is a virtual situation. In any case, I wanted this to be the first video because I had a lot of questions. We have about 37, but maybe by the time the class starts, about 40 people in this class. And there was a lot of questions about, come on, is this real? Can you really make that kind of money? And the answer is yes. That's the short answer. And so I'm going to spend a little time right now just showing you what is a certification and what jobs are available out there right now to do this. Now, later on in the course, I'll have another video and some information about how to use Google's or Coursera's, I'm not sure whose it is, um, little platform that allows you to connect to all these different companies and put your information out there. So they don't just abandon you. I mean, they really do give you the opportunity to do this course, get certified, and then directly say, I want to get a job. Here's the information about me, and allow them to help connect you. Not that you need that though, because there's Indeed and there's lots of other things that are out there. So let's get into some of the details on what do certifications do within this industry, and how important are they, and what does this certification do as opposed to others? And then we'll look at pay, then we'll look at money. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to take a look at a couple of slides on a little presentation that I give to my 103 class. But let's start with this one. All right, so this little slide, we'll just start with this slide. I wanted you to see that there's lots of companies out there that deal in certifications. CompTIA is the one I put at the top because they're the biggest. It's a non-product specific, meaning they teach you how PCs work. They teach you how networking works, and you go take a test that costs money, and you get their stamp of approval, and you're CompTIA certified. And that's a big certification in the industry, especially their Network Plus certification. And that Network Plus certification we teach in CMP 250. Their A Plus certification, which is what used to be the base, the benchmark, right? So if you wanted to get started in this business, you would go get CompTIA A Plus certified. And A Plus certification meant that they introduced you to hardware, basics of networking, but things have changed, and I'll get to that. Most of the others here, Microsoft, Cisco, Oracle does database. They're a huge database. So is Amazon, is huge in the database. I know we think of them as buy stuff from them, but they sell their database products, data systems products. And so they have certifications that are product specific, such as Microsoft Server 2019. In other words, can I operate, or do I know the ins and outs, because that's what it is for Microsoft, of the 2019 server product that they release. Now, in all of these that are product specific, obviously there's information that goes across categories, right? I could get a Microsoft certification about data systems, and I could go get a job with Oracle instead. You know, the data systems, there's a lot that crosses over. But in any of these that are product specific, it's going to be, do you know how to use our product, and do you know these concepts, right? That's what they're there for. Google now is both. So Google does their G Suite products, their sheets and all of that stuff. And you can get certified in that, which is pretty easy to do. Mostly K-12 teachers are interested in that. But they have those, and those are very product specific for them. But now they're offering a certification that's very general, and you'll see that. They don't just go, here's our Google stuff, and pay attention to Android and pay attention to Chrome. They talk about all the stuff that's out there. And so this certification that you're working on now is not product specific. That's the words I'm looking for. And then the bottom one, I've got eCounsel there. And eCounsel is security. And I'm going to be teaching a security class, 285. It'll be ethical hacking in the fall. And I'm really excited about that one. That one will Be a lot of fun. All right, so let's jump over here and resume. Right, so this is an example. This is Microsoft's certification, fundamentals, associate, expert, and you can do Azure stuff, 365 administration, DevOps is programming, and that's just for Azure. And then there's systems administrators and architects. There's all this stuff, and I'm going to tell you honestly, these certifications demand a lot and offer a lot and pay. They do. They're highly sought after. A+, comptia.org. I just wanted to show you that briefly. That's not what this class is about. We discuss all this in my CMP 100 class that I do in the fall, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But this is their website that talks about what their A+ stuff is. I try to focus students on Network Plus because that kind of trumps what A+ does for networking. That's a networking certification. All right, let's take a look at why Google, why did this happen? Is this going to be a big deal? I mean, that's the questions that everybody keeps asking. What is this going to really be something that will matter? And I've told a lot of you, yes, it will be. I believe, because number one, Google has the name, right? Google is the name right now. It used to be Microsoft back in the 90s and throughout most of the 2000s that we've gone through. It was Microsoft, and now it's Google. So Google puts their stamp on something, and that means something. Well, I'll tell you that I was actually a little skeptical of this certification. I didn't know anything about it. Then they said, hey, we have the chance to offer this. Do you think we should? And I immediately just went out there and started looking at the information that was available and seeing what are they teaching in this. And most of that information I sent to all of you. And I was like, yeah, yeah, this is perfect. Google did exactly what they say they did. They took a look at what do they want a person to know if they're going to hire an IT support person. And they did that. So you're going to hit some stuff that's very basic. You're going to hit some stuff that's a lot more advanced than actually you would get until you were in a second or third course of something. Because they're saying this is what you need to know in order to work for us. And so I believe, yes, it's going to be a big deal. It's got their name on it. But that only lasts for a little while, right? If it doesn't actually do what it's supposed to do, then that's going to lose steam. And the thing is this does do what it's supposed to do. And so I think it's going to gain momentum. A+ was supposed to be that thing. And back when I first started teaching it, when it really first came out, it wasn't a super hard certification to get. It covered information, but not what it does now. Now it's just massive. And so from their point of view, CompTIA's point of view, it's kind of like they look at your entire career of maybe what you could do out there. And then CompTIA says, well, this is the information you need when you get started. And it's this huge amount, right? And that's really not what you need to get started. Google has taken a look and said to their people, what do you need to do this job? And they went down and made a list, and that's what they're teaching you. So to me, that is where this power really lies. I even had somebody mention to me, well, what happens if I get these and then I don't go into the industry? Do you think it'll be helpful? I'm like, oh yeah, of course it will be. You'll be able to put that on a resume. And when they get to that, they'll go, well, what is this Google IT support? What is this specialist thing? Explain this. And then you talk some detail about what you learned. And then they go, oh, wow. So this job doesn't do what you put down on there. And you're like, yeah, I just wanted you to know that I can learn that stuff. I don't want to do that, but I can learn it. It's not a problem. That's a huge thing. I don't know if I'll say this again some other time, but my first degree was in K-12 education, and I never used it. I went in to tech support. I went into, right here on the screen, computer support specialist. That's what I went into. And after about 3 or 4 years, I didn't like, actually, it was about 3 years, I didn't like living where I was, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go teach. And so I applied to all these places, and I had tons and tons of computer classes because that's what I loved, you know. And I can't tell you how many calls I got just off of that, how many interviews I got because they're like, oh, I see you got a lot of computer skills here, right? I wasn't applying for a computer job. I was just applying to teach fourth or fifth grade, right? But they focused in on that, like, oh, wait, those are skills that are important. We need more people like that. And so even if you don't go into this, being able to put that down on a resume is going to be important. At this point, before we really look at this pay, I want to just mention you get out of this what you put into it, right? That's always the case. Um, your brain works just like any other muscle. It's, if you've got good study habits, you're going to do well in this. That's just the facts. You will. Don't doubt yourself. You got good study habits, this is going to work. If you don't have good study habits, it's time to get some, because no matter how smart you are, this condensed course will challenge you, because if you're not really studying it, then it doesn't help. Um, Secondly, we kind of become a people where we think we just got to jump through hoops. I end up with a lot of students coming out of high school that that's what they approach every class like. It's just jumping through another hoop. When you put this down on a resume and then you directly talk to these people about this and what you learned, that is when it will count. Being able to put this down is not the important part. Being able to say, this is what I learned in there. This is what I remember from it. This is what I can apply. That tells them not just, wow, you have technical skills. It tells them something that even more that they want, which is you can learn and you can remember and you have been trained to do that. Now, I know that that sounds kind of silly, but any of you that have been involved in interviews, that is a fundamental thing you're looking for, right? Lots of times people will be hired um, just because they can sell themselves in that interview, and what they're selling is, I can do this job. I can learn anything that you want me to learn. And so you can use this on your resume to say, hey, I learned this stuff. I know this stuff. But of course, if you didn't really pay much attention and you just made sure you could pass the test, then when you actually sit down with them, right, they'll ask you questions about it. And you'll be like, yeah, well, we did stuff with SSH. What's SSH? Well, we logged into things. You know, that's not going to bode well for you. And so, good study habits, you'll be doing well in this course. Now, let's look at really what you want here, which is pay. What is this really, really going to do for me? Well, most of you, if you're older, know this, so I'm not going to dwell on this, but job satisfaction comes from these things that you see on the screen. It doesn't come from a certain thing that you're doing. It comes from whether or not you love it, whether or not you enjoy it. I loved working in technology, and if you take time to look at who I am, um, that was a big part of me. And the only reason I stopped doing that is because I was teaching part time, and I loved teaching technology more than I actually loved figuring out the problems. But I still get those cravings, I guess, of, man, I need to figure something out. I need to see what's going on because I don't get to work with the latest stuff. And that bodes well for me in this job. We just started a 255 class last year, 2 years now. That's a virtual server course. A virtual server course in a 2-year degree. I mean, they don't even teach most of that stuff in a bachelor's degree. It's information that students can learn that's valuable. And why did I do it? I didn't have to, right? I could have just said, it's fine. But I love figuring that stuff out myself. And that has benefited me in my teaching job, because I'll always say, well, what's this new thing? And I want to figure that out. And then if I determine that that's going to be important for my students, then I'm going to have them do it too. I want them to be as far ahead as they can. Now, I know most of you already have a degree. A lot of you already do. But understanding these things is important, right? Those of you that have a bit more experience realize this. It's like, I could do a lot of things as long as I'm doing these things, I'm going to be happy. And when you're young, you kind of think, no, there's like this one thing out there that's going to make me extremely happy and nothing else can do that. All right, so let's look at the fastest growing jobs. This was from 2016. And I went out and looked last year and it was the same. So I didn't bother to update it because it was pretty much the same. So when you look at this list, these are your top. These are the top ones. Where does this come from? US Department of Labor, right? So these people know. Most of these you don't want, right? The top two, I don't want to work at McDonald's. It's in high demand, but I don't want to work there. Then finally you get to one, registered nurse, and hey, that's some good pay. And then wait, home health aides, well, I don't want that one either, right? They've got a lot of need for these people, but nobody wants to pay them. Then you get to software developers and applications. Those are the programmers, right? And that's their median income for programming. If you like math, you're going to be good at programming. So let's continue. Fastest growing occupations for bachelor's degrees. There's our software developers again, right? So all these people make good money. That's what you're seeing here. All of them make good money. And of course, this always gets the attention. PAs, nursing practitioners, go into medicine, you'll make a ton of money. And I tell people, go into software development, you'll make a ton of money. You won't have to change bedpans. And that's great. And then these are STEM occupations. So if you're not familiar with that, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. So the fastest growing jobs between 2016 to 2026. And we'll look at the last thing that I ended on. And right there is customer support specialist, starting 5216. So this isn't where they got their information from, but it sure does sound familiar, right? And then there's some other careers. I put in careers that have to do with, and I pulled this straight out of here. This was actually a Bureau of whatever statistics, K-12 stuff. Anyway, this is stuff I pulled out of them that's got network administrator, disaster recovery, a tech writer, support specialist right here. They say the average low is 31 and the average high is 65. That's what you're looking at right here. Support specialist. Right in that. So now let's look at some real stuff, right? So I like to go to usajobs.gov. These are all government jobs. So that means whatever pay you're looking at here, you can make more, right? Because government doesn't pay that well. These are also government contractors. So I have to say that it's not just government jobs. It's anybody that's working with military or court systems or anything, even if they're a contractor. Systems administration is not what you're going into, but that's a starting salary for that one. There's a 60,000 for that one. Systems and networks, 57. And then they've got some other ones, health systems administrator, health systems. So those are all, there's a cybersecurity specialist, that's 121,000. There's a network support specialist, 64. And you're like, well, what does this have to do with this certification? Well, this certification is the starting point for all of this. It really is. It really is. The only thing this isn't a starting point for is the programming side of things. And that just go take programming classes and get a degree in it, or get one of those Microsoft programming certifications, or programmers are in such high demand too. If you can prove you have the skills, you'll get a job. All right, so here's another. This is USA Jobs, and I searched for specialists. So there's a few things that come up in this that aren't really related to you, but there's an IT specialist, 60,000. IT spec is security. Anyway, so there's a specialist, IT specialist. There's a tech writer, 66. And these are all there. I just pulled this up today. So it's like I could apply for that right now. You could be a waiter. I'm not sure how that got in there. Anyway, so there's a bunch there. And then, okay, let's go and look at Indeed. This is just a general one. I've done a bunch of searches on these different things. So since I did a search last week, there's 659 new network architects, 927 network support specialists that are new. So I did a search last week. And when I refreshed this page, it was like, hey, you did searches on this. So here's a bunch of new ones that you haven't even looked at. There's customer support, 7,049. Yeah, there's a high demand. Since last week, there's 7,000 job postings more than what there were. So this is IT customer support, because if you just do customer support, if you just search for that, you get customer support for everything. And in other words, it doesn't have anything to do with computers. You're just supporting customers. So I wanted, technical support jobs. So there's a 15 an hour a job there. Power dialer administrator, 14 an hour. Full-time technical support, they don't even list it, right? It's like, we're going to pay you 50 to whatever. Technical support. There's a team manager, and they don't list what you're going to make there either. Right? There's customer technical support, customer service technical support, work from home. A lot of people asked, can I do this and still stay here? Because obviously you kind of realize that the Gila Valley is not the tech giant of the world. I wish it was. I wish we were graduating tons of students so that, somebody come in here and put a tech support place. But right now it's not. So we got about 6 places that would hire you. And you would do well in those situations, but you probably make more money for one of these. My daughter right now, she's going to school at ENMU, and because of the COVID thing, they still need the tech people around. That's something you have to understand, right? Somebody has to support the questions. People have to get work done. And when they can't do something within the system on their computer, what are they going to do? Well, then they talk to tech support. And so she works in tech support and customer service, and she's working from home. She's got an IP phone. She plugs that in, plugs it into her network. It talks across the network, logs into ENMU's system, and then those calls come to her. She also logs in with her email, and she looks at the email and then calls people back or emails them back depending on what they wanted. And she's working from home and still getting paid. And so there's an IT specialist. This one they did look 48 to 93, probably because they have to, because see, this is the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. But again, if you look and say the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, that's a government job, then you realize, wow, they're paying good. That means somebody who's in the private sector is probably making 5,000 more than this starting. The jobs are there. And especially since our current president, and this isn't a political statement, it's just a statement of fact, restricted who could come in. A lot of those people that were coming from Asia, India, those areas of the world, they were coming for these tech jobs that cannot be outsourced to some other country. I mean, the Dell thing. And that's kind of the thing. When somebody says tech support, IT tech support, they think, oh, well, who would hire me? HP, Dell, IBM. They think of tech companies. And it's like, no, anybody that's got a piece of software running has to support that with their customers. There was one guy many years ago, so this is going back 12 years ago. He was so good at tech support. The guy was making $65,000 a year, which was a lot of money, back then. So now it would probably be like $75,000 a year. And he was up there, and it was time to retire. So he's, I'm going to retire and move to Wyoming. I've been saving money. I'm going to buy my ranch. And he did. And it wasn't even 6 months before that company called him and said, will you log in remotely and help our customers, and we'll pay you the same. You just do part-time work, 4 hours a day or whatever you want, and we'll pay you the same. So if you're good at this, the jobs are there, the money's there. That little card that came in the mail, or that text you got, or the email you received was not lying. It's not trumped up. It's not one of those situations where they say, oh yeah, if you go into this, then yeah, you could make this. It's like, yeah, but there's only 100 of those jobs that make that. There's thousands and tens of thousands of unfilled customer support jobs. That does not include network support jobs or security jobs, and I don't mean like a security guard, but cybersecurity. They're just unfilled, and they're going to remain unfilled because we can't get enough people even when we were bringing people into the country to do those jobs. And now that's stopped, and now it's even bigger and huger. And so you can look even in this environment and you'll find thousands and thousands of jobs that have tons and tons of good pay. The thing is do you want to do that? Is this something that you would want? And I just have one little note on that, and then this is the end of this presentation. Remember where job satisfaction actually comes from. When I teach my 103 class, I tell them, for the most part, you are going to be working with computers as much as a tech support person does, or as much as a network administrator or a database admin. And they can't conceive that. And so think for a minute. You go down to the family practice and you see your doctor and you think to yourself, he's working with people all day long. Well, in part, that's true. He is. But when he's not working with a person, what is he doing? Yeah, I'm pausing for effect. He's working on the computer. He's usually working on the computer when you're sitting there, right? He's typing up notes on the computer. He's figuring out where he's going to send your prescription to. He's working on the computer, or he's talking to people. That's what he's doing. And people don't think of it that way. I have a friend, he's way up in a corporation. I mean, 7 figures up in a corporation. And he works with people all the time. He's dealing with regulations, and he's got a team, and they try to figure things out. And of course, how does all that get done? On the computer. He is doing those things mostly through the computer system. He's spending most of his time on a computer. He spends more time on a computer than I do, and I teach computers. And you may think, that's not true. It's like, yeah, it is. I go into class and I talk to students, and then they get going on their assignments, right? And I'm doing that for most of my day. And when I'm not doing that, then I'm on the computer, putting grades in, doing presentations like this, whatever it happens to be. And so people don't really look at it that way. They don't really think that, well, I want to go into marketing, or I want to go into PR. I'll work with all these people. And it's like, you will, but you'll also work on a computer as much as the tech support person does, right? Because they're talking to you and helping you constantly, and they're putting all that in on the computer. It's really not a massively different job. People just think it is. And that's why you'll see, as you start to go through Google, that they'll interview different people and the backgrounds that they came from. And most of them have not come from this background. That's part of the problem that they're trying to solve, get people interested in this and get them in. Not 4 years down the road, they've already got a bachelor's degree, they've been doing marketing, and then they realize they're really good at computers and can make more money at it. And then finally they go into computers, right? And they're like, why didn't I know about this 7 years ago, right? That's kind of the idea there. So anyway, let me stop sharing the screen and say to you, thanks for watching. The next videos will deal with getting through the material. How is Coursera lined out? How is, what are we using? Canvas lined out. What's in these things, and how can we get the job done? You won't have to use a product like Word or Google Docs or anything like that. There's a few places where you submit things and your ideas in Coursera. And I would say use a product that you can spell check on before you submit it. But other than that, it's all self-contained. So you got questions, I'm here to give you answers. And those may come in video form because it's easier to do, and I can show you things while we do that. But again, I'm James McBride. I'm glad to meet you. I'm grateful that you're in the class. I hope that you will find success in this. And I promise you that if you sit down and do this work every day, you'll do really well in the course. Talk to you later.